everybody, welcome back to another tutorial. We're going to be doing something really fun today. I'm going to be painting a mason jar with cranberry juice in it. And I know that's very specific, but that's because I canned cranberry juice, or I made it. I have one with honey here, and one is sweetened with coconut sugar. And I'm giving these away as Christmas gifts. So I wanted to make labels to go on the mason jars themselves. So I'm going to basically paint this and then do a little magic in Photoshop and print really beautiful labels so that I can put them on multiple jars. So this is going to be a two-part video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to actually paint the jar itself like I do in every other video, but I am going to make the second part of this video exclusively available on my Patreon, which I am going to try and revive. And that video is going to go more into the details of how to take what you've painted here and turn it into kind of a digital image that you can then use for labels, cards. You can manipulate it, move it around, add things to it. So if you're interested, I will talk a little bit more about that later, but let's just get into the painting itself. Okay, so before we actually start painting the mason jar, I'm going to sketch it out with a pencil first. So you're welcome to look up images on the internet if you don't want to freehand it, or if you have a mason jar at home, then by all means use it. But it's kind of like a rounded rectangle, I like to call it, that I draw first, sort of like that. And then you want to be sure to add the lid portion. Okay, so now there are a couple of ways of going about this, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. A lot of the times, if you're just painting a mason jar with water, then you would focus more on the mason jar itself, since water is clear. So you'd like outline this with like a blackish blue and blend it out. But because our jars are going to be very red, I don't know if there's any purpose to actually doing that. So I think what I'm going to do is start first on the inside, like the contents of the jar. So it is cranberry juice, so it's going to be this like plum red color. So I am just mixing red with a maroony color, but you can achieve that same color if you add a little bit of black to any red. So I want to water it down a little bit and just basically start on the edges here. And we're just filling the entire jar in. Maybe not the entire jar, maybe let's do kind of half. So this is the first time I'm painting this, so if it's not obvious, like all my paintings, except this one I don't really know what I'm doing. Okay, I'm gonna flip this and just outline the other side with that same red. And what I'm going to do is dip my paintbrush into water to rinse it out, dry it a little bit on a paper towel, and then I'm going to try and blend out, like join the two sides together by blending them into this gradient. So it sort of looks like there's a reflection on my jar here. But the thing is, I need to still add the actual cranberries in there because there's a lot of cranberries, but 1.5 cups worth. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. The cranberries themselves, because it depends how you want to look at it. In the jar where I used the coconut sugar, the cranberries are actually quite a bit lighter. And in the jar where I used the honey, the cranberries are darker. So I am just mixing some black and brown in with my red to achieve this very like brownish red color. And I'm going to dab it along the top line of where our cranberry juice sits. And then I'm gently dabbing more of it kind of downwards, but not in a very symmetrical way. I just want, whoops, that was a big one. I just want it to look like there are cranberries sitting at the top. And you can even paint some rounded shapes sticking out from the liquid itself. That will make it a little bit more realistic. But the more I look at it, the more I realize that this just does not look, it doesn't look like cranberries. It just looks like it's a darker concentration of pigment up there. So what are we gonna do? What are we going to do? I don't know. I'm gonna switch gears. I am really sorry if this is all over the place. I'm hitting two birds with one stone. I'm trying to create a label and do a tutorial at the same time. The second portion of this video, I promise you, will be a lot more calculated. So I'm just going ahead. I added some black to my red and I'm outlining the edge of my jar because it faded, like it faded a little bit more than I wanted it to. So just doing that. And I'm gonna add some deep red to that on top so that it's not very harsh. There we go. And we want to prevent the cauliflower effect, the dreaded cauliflower effect. So I am going to very quickly do something similar on the other side. Like so. And then again, rinse my brush and just try to blend them together. Like so. Okay. I am going to try and pick up just a little bit of pigment on this side, lining that jar, because that's sort of the way that the light reflects off of my mason jars. Like so. So there's a reflection here and a reflection here. I hope that doesn't fade in, like back in, but I think it will, so we might have to touch that up in a moment. But in the meantime, I think it would be best to let this dry just so that we can paint the cranberries and have them actually appear a little bit darker. So we are going to do that, but before I do that, I am going to darken this area again. So I've taken black, a lot more black and a lot less red this time. And I'm just going over that section that I painted a little bit darker. Like so. And I'm glad that that white highlight is staying the way it is. That's great. So we're gonna let this dry, but while we are waiting for that to dry, I'm trying to debate what to do with the top of the lid. We can either, you know, paint it with watercolor and just outline it in a nice kind of darkish gray color. Alternatively, what I was considering doing is outlining this entire thing in black fine tip marker and making it look sort of like a cartoony mason jar. And then I would just extend that black and go over the lid. But gosh, I don't want to ruin it. That's the dilemma. Like, I really like how it looks now because the borders are quite intense. Everything looks well blended. So I'm just switching to my favorite detail brush, my Quadruple Zero by Winsor & Newton. It's in the description if you're interested. And I am going to take some black, or gray works too, but black, and it's going to be watered down. The problem that I have is that because I use black with a lot of watercolors, I don't clean the half pan, and so often there's black with a lot of other colors in there. Okay, so let's just attempt this lid. This, I don't know if perforated is the right word, but this side and this side is going to be uneven because, you know, you have to screw on a lid somehow, so there have to be these details for you to be able to do that. So you can kind of, the best way for me to describe it is kind of like what a heart rate looks like. So it kind of goes straight and then wavy and then straight again on a heart rate monitor, if you've ever seen that. And then we're gonna do the top here. So a very, very squashed oval for that lid. And then we are going to add some lines to the lid here so that it looks like a lid. And I am also going to do a line there. That doesn't look half bad. That's really not too bad. What I'm gonna do though is blend this out a bit. So I just took a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of water, and I am just adding it in between all the sections that we painted. And I'm going to take like the slightest hint of red and add it in there. That might even be too much. So it's almost like a pink that we're adding, because you can see the reflection of the intense cranberry juice into the lid like that. Does that make sense? Now what we're gonna do, I filled this mason jar way too high. I should have cut it off here, but it is what it is. Okay, now comes the moment of truth. Are we gonna really mess this up by adding these cranberries, or is this gonna really make it look nice? I don't know, but we're gonna find out. It should be completely dry. I know that mine definitely isn't, but we're gonna go with it anyway and potentially ruin it. So I'm taking that nice plumish red color. I'm adding just a teensy weensy bit of black to darken it. Okay. And we are going to paint, yeah, see, mine's not fully dry yet. What do we do now? Just keep going, I guess. And I'm painting the cranberries, making sure to leave space between them. And this portion over here, we want to make them lighter because that's where the light is reflecting. So just a tad bit lighter. And same on the reflection strip that we painted here. All right, so that's not horrible. I'm not too happy with how these ones kind of spread out because it wasn't completely dry, but that's completely my fault for not being patient. So another thing that we can do is add some white acrylic details to intensify the reflections on our mason jar. So you can paint as many as you'd like, but I'm going to attempt to paint 1 or 2 just on this side. So I'll have one coming like that. Make that a little bit darker. And then I'm going to intensify this one on this side. My camera just turned off. So yeah, I have really cheap white acrylic paint, so I do have to do a few layers for it to be opaque enough. But it just goes to show you that, you know, you can use cheap stuff. You don't need like high-end things to achieve the look that you're going for. I'm gonna have one more like that. Okay, that's a little bit too much, I think. I'll try to fix that a little bit with my finger. Okay. I think I am happy with the reflections on this guy. Now you can stop here because I've been debating whether to do this next step. You can take a fine tip marker or a black pen and outline your mason jar. And by outlining it, it's going to make it look a little bit more cartoony. And if you're outlining it, then this step was optional with the lid because you could have just gone over it with your fine tip marker. So try and be careful as you're doing this. You could even make it look more cartoony. Like if you accidentally mess up and go beyond the line, that's okay. Like you can make it look more cartoony that way. Sometimes in previous videos, I've intentionally done that where I go beyond what I've painted onto the white background. So I'm gonna outline this. I really, really like how that looks. I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty nifty, if I do say so myself. You could paint this so that it looks like there's a lid on top, but I think I'm just gonna leave it the way that it is. Okay, so with this, you know, you could paint a bunch of these and use them for whatever purpose you want. Like for me, I need multiples because I'm giving multiple people cranberry juice jars. So in this next section, if you're available and you have Photoshop, or you can, you know, purchase a subscription of Photoshop, but regardless, if you join my Patreon, there's a video available now of part 2 of this video. So we will be showing you how to turn this into like a digital mason jar so that you can extract it as an individual piece and you can paste it onto another page. You can add things to it. You can make it into a card. You can add text. So if you are interested in doing that sort of stuff, head on over to there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're just sticking around for this one, I really appreciate that as well. Please comment down below what you think and subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.